Hi everyone and welcome back to another video with me, Shruti. You're watching Living Our Ascension. This is basically going to be a series of videos that I do on astrology. And, because what happens is that, astrology is one of the tools that I used along my process of ascension and enlightenment, to really come into myself. And as you might know, one of the most important things about ascension is know thyself, is coming into a knowing of what you are at a soul level. And astrology was one of those things that really helped me. And certain aspects of astrology more than others, because you could really get into astrology into lots of details, but there's certain aspects of it that I wanted to speak about that are more important than others perhaps for the ascension path. And one of these things is the placement of the north node of the moon. And I really wanted to make this video especially for those of you who are perhaps haven't delved into astrology yet, or you don't know, you're beginners. And that's fine, because I'll be showing you how you can calculate it yourself. It's actually not like a calculation. You just have to see what sign it's in, what house it's in, and then you just need to listen to my explanation for it and see if it gives you some tips. Because I remember that, the position of the North Node, it shows us what our destiny is in this life, but it also shows us, those areas of our life where we fall the most, perhaps which are the most challenging for us, areas that are quite unknown. It can often show us where we have addictions, the challenges that we have, and those are actually the areas that we are really obsessed with. And that's why when we don't get it in the moment, we sort of cling to the lower aspect of that energy, and we that's where the addictions come in. And but once we know what the higher aspect of that same energy is, then we can use it in a more productive way, and that actually becomes our destiny. The North Node is the North Node, so basically, is not a planet, like you have the sun in a certain sign, you have the moon in a certain sign. These are all physical planets. But the North and South nodes, they represent these points. They're just points in the sky. And you can say that that's where a certain high level of energy comes in. So it's kind of like, the energy is higher than what the planets represent. So even though they're not physical, they actually represent the point of, if you look at a person's life and you see that they went through the process of enlightenment within themselves, and you see how they did that, like what events caused that more specifically, and what realizations then led them to do that, like what were the main themes. One way that you can see that is through astrology. And so the position of the North and South nodes can really show us that. So I hope that it is with that end that I'm making this, that I hope that this can help you. So if you're subscribed to this channel and you see 12 different videos, because there's 12 positions in astrology depending on what sign it's in, then that's the reason why that I'm putting out so many. And I don't plan to put out lots of different astrology videos, so don't worry about it. It's it's not going to be an every day or every week thing. If you see lots of videos uploaded at once, that's the reason why. Or there might be one after the other, I'm not sure yet. So if you're watching this and this is not your sign, just wait for your sign to come. And so what I'm going to do is, first I'm just going to give you a little bit more of the introduction, and especially you need to check which house and sign it's in, so that you can then find that video on my channel related to that house and sign and listen to those two videos. So what you need to do is, if you don't know, if you already follow astrology and you already know, you follow a certain house system, because in astrology there's different systems, house systems, which can, and depending on which system you use, the sign, not the sign, but the house position most likely of your South and North node can be different. So if you already use astrology, then you can use whatever house system you use. That's fine. You can listen to my interpretation for it. But if you don't, then I follow the whole house system, and I really like this system. And it's also the simplest to understand as well, so it's quite easy. I will explain it in just a second. It's not hard, so don't worry about it. So what you need to do is click the link below this video. When you check the description below this video, you'll see a link to a website where you can go and you can enter your birth information, and it'll generate your astrology chart. And on that astrology chart, then you can check your north node, where it is. And so the information that you need before you go to this website is your birth date, the place and the place of birth, as well as the exact time of birth. So if you don't know your time of birth within like 10-15 minutes, if it's not accurate, then only check the sign of your north node, because the sign should remain the same, no matter, as long as you have the day right, the birth day. But the time, changes the house that it's placed in, like where on the wheel it is. If you don't know your birth time, then just listen to the video for the sign. So for example, my north node is in the sign of Taurus, and it's in the 11th house. But if I don't know my time of birth, I will just look at north node or Rahu in Taurus, and I won't really check because I don't know which house it's in, because I don't know my time of birth. But if you know that your time of birth, which should be most of you, and this needs to be accurate, so check it from like a birth certificate or another kind of official document. If you know your birth time, then enter that information, and you'll know which house it's in as well. And then listen to 2 videos then. So first listen to the house video, and then listen to the sign video. And I've drawn a chart here that I can show you an example. When you go on that link and you enter the information, one of the charts on that page will be a circular one like this. So check the circular chart and look for this RA. This is Rahu, or it's also called the north node. In Vedic or Indian astrology, it's known as Rahu. The north node is known as Rahu. And the opposite is Ketu. Ketu is the south node. And south node shows what our past has been like, what our default patterns are. And Rahu shows what we are coming into, what our destiny in this life is, what purpose we are here to fulfill. So now, as you can see, we're going to focus a little bit more on the north node, because that is what we need to fulfill, and the south node is basically what we're leaving behind. So you'll see me mention this much more, but this whole axis is important. So the Rahu or the north node, for my chart, is in the sign of Taurus and is in the 11th house. And how do you know this is the 11th house? Is because the first house is always this one. If you look on the chart, on the western side, it'll be over here on the western side. This is the first house always on a circular chart. So mine is Cancer. So this is 1. You always count the first house first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you get to 11. So this is the 11th house. So my north node is in the 11th house. And like I said, it's in the sign of Taurus. So here I've written down, so write down these 2 things, that north node or Rahu is in the 11th house. So this is the video I'll see first, north node or Rahu in 11th house. The video I'll watch second is north node or Rahu in the sign of Taurus. So these are the 2 videos now that I need to watch. So once you go on this website and you have this figured out, you write these 2 things so that you don't get confused, then you can watch these 2 videos. And if you have any questions, if you're watching this video, you have any questions, you're confused, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try and help you out if I can. And now let's begin, with a little bit of explanation of what the north and south nodes are, and then I will, proceed to the position. So the south node in astrology is known as, our past. If you believe in past lives, it shows us what kind of a past life we had, what we were in our past life. If you don't believe in past lives, then it's something that the past that we have had in this life, our childhood, when we were growing up, let's say like the first 20-30 years of our life. And the north node then shows us what is our actual destiny in this life. And the south node, representing our past, shows us what we're good at. It's something that we are quite good at already, that we have established ourselves in. Imagine like if it's like a past life, we've actually done that already. It's something that we have are quite mature in, but that doesn't mean that we have fully mastered it. And then how do we master it though? It can be an area in life, the South Node, where we are a little bit dissatisfied. And how do we make that complete? How do we become satisfied in it and become fully complete in that life, in that area of life, is if we develop where our North Node is placed. So we are, lots of astrologers say that you need to let go of the position of where the South Node is, like whatever the South Node represents in your life, let go of that area and only focus on the North. It's not really exactly like that, but the thing is that wherever your South Node is sitting, you just need to it's something that comes easily to you, that you can fall back upon, but there isn't as much of an dedicated effort needed in that area of life, because if you overdo that, then it becomes stagnant. So how it will expand is when you go towards what the North Node represents, and then not only will that area, unknown area of the North Node of your destiny flourish, but also this area that you are good at but have not fully mastered, this also becomes mastered. So the two opposite ends come together, and that's when transcendence happens, because that is how we transcend duality. So all of us in our heads, in the beginning, we have why we haven't become enlightened yet is because there is some part of us that considers something as good or bad, weighs this one as better than the other, and the other is not something we have fully gone into, we haven't fully embraced. So when we actually go in this direction of the North Node, we fully embrace it in a grounded way, in a way that's not ungrounded, or trying to do it in a quick way, in a superficial way, but we actually delve into it there. And this is something that, where the South Node is, we're quite developed in it. When the two of them come together, then both of them grow. It becomes that yin yang, that balance, and that means that through that area of life and the struggles that we've had within it, and then the realizations, we transcend. So when we truly do that, that's when the enlightenment process happens. And if you check the charts of people who perhaps have reached a certain level in their enlightenment, you can see that, the events that happened in their life that caused that, both the problems and the transcendence, a big part of it is related to this axis. So this is the axis, according to me. I've never read this, but according to me, this is how we transcend duality. So that's our life purpose in this life. You might have a certain job, like let's say you're a teacher, or let's say you're a doctor, because the sign of Virgo is a doctor. Let's say your sun is in Virgo, or you are a doctor, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you came into this life to become a doctor. It's just your job, it's what you do. Let's say your North Node is in another sign that represents being a pioneer or something, then your main purpose was to become a pioneer, to do something in a new way, to really develop that, to forge new paths. And because your sun is in Virgo, you do that as a doctor. You could have easily done that. If your sun was somewhere else, you could have easily done that being a pioneer, being a teacher, being, a homemaker, whatever it might be. But the main purpose for which you incarnated in this life was not to be a doctor, it's to be a pioneer, to do things in a different way. It's just an example. So it shows us, the position of our North Node shows us what is our destiny in this life. It's always an area that is the most darkest in our horoscope, that we don't know. That's the unknown region. It represents our unknown. The South Node, our past, represents the comfort zone, the default patterns that we keep going back to. And then what happens, like when we keep doing something that we have done, it becomes boring, it becomes redundant, there's some stagnation there. And the only way that it can expand is if we open up new areas of life, and then we bring those skills, then they merge with something we already know. So that's what the North Node represents. And where we have the North Node, it's actually this really high vibrational energy, and we will be doing things in a very different way, in a more eccentric way. And we can be quite eccentric with it, which I'll explain through every sign that when we do that. But what the North Node represents, is also something that when we first go into the unknown, like when we go into the darkness, the dark forest, we're going to fall down a few times. We can't see anything. We're not familiar with that space. But it's something that, really draws us in. It's the mystery. It's the most mysterious thing, and it's like we can be obsessed with it, with that area of life, and we really want it. We desire it, But when we go into it, we can first latch on to the more superficial things that it represents, and those become the main obsessions in our life, the main personality, defects, quote unquote, even though there's no as such defects. But those become the most problematic areas in our life often. But when we learn to see what the higher aspect of that same energy is, and we put our efforts there and we keep going it, because in the beginning, when we try and do it the right way, something, instead of grabbing onto this more superficial aspect of it, when we go deeper into the unknown, into the darkness, we will fall quite a few times. So it's really important for us to be on that path, to keep at that path. And the North Node is said to mature around the age of 42 or 45, and that's when we truly learn, after falling down quite a few times, the lessons of what it represents. But if you are on the path of enlightenment, of ascension, this can happen much before. You don't have to wait for that default time of 42 and 45. Perhaps things will become more grounded at that time, but you can really accelerate your journey as well. So I don't want to keep speaking about this and make this too long, but that is what the North Node represents. And when you combine this North and South Node axis, this becomes transcendence. And I'll be speaking about, depending on your placement, what that axis is for you and what you need to unify, and the negative experiences that can happen, as well as how you can transcend them, and what the positive side of that is. And in the comments below, please let me know if you resonate with this, what particular challenges you've gone through. Let us all know. And finally, I also want to say that I have astrology readings on my website as well, so please check them out. They are relationship readings, because relationships are another aspect of life through which we find out what we are as a soul, because all the relationships that we meet in our life, they reflect our own soul. So it's the beloved path, and there's lots of people out there who are looking for their soulmate, their twin flame, and that's what this reading is all about. It shows you what kind of partners come into your life, at a physical level as well, what their qualities are, but also at a higher level, what that union, that marriage looks like, and it shows you what that union with yourself looks like, so it brings insights into that. They're very interesting codes. So that's one of the readings I have. It's called Soulmate Astrology Codes reading. And then the other reading I have compares two charts. So for example, your own chart, and if you have a partner. So if you're single, you can go for the first one. It'll bring you insights into your default patterns as well. What holds you back from fulfilling relationships, what your default patterns might be, anything in the way. Because when we come into that conscious awareness of it, then things start to change, and then we draw partners that represent that higher energy instead, for more fulfilling relationships. And the other reading that I have compares two different charts. So for example, you and your partner, you give me their birth information as well as yours, and I compare them and speak about the dynamic of this relationship, when the two energies come together, what the clashes are, what the problems can be, and how you can transcend them, as well as what the higher union looks like because the highest union that we can have on this planet is of service. You are here to serve at the end of the day. You are a creator being, so you are here to create something. You are here to serve yourself and all of creation. And when two people come together, they can build something that is even greater than what they can do individually to create, to serve. And there's charts that are not just the main astrology chart. There's these divisional charts in astrology as well, and all of them can things like that can show what that purpose is, what our higher purpose is. So when we know that, we come into it it ourselves first, and then we draw partners that represent it, and so it becomes that actual soulmate union, and not just, you know, any random physical partners that we might have that only fulfill us at a socio economic level, but also at the higher level. Anyway, so those are the readings I have on my website. Please check them out in the astrology services section of www.livingourascension.com. You can find the link below this video. And now let's move on to the sign position. Rahu, or the North Node, in either the 7th house or in the sign of Libra. So if you have this position, then what does it mean? Well, you know, this axis of Libra and the opposite sign Aries, the Libra Aries axis, is all about coming into the balance of self-efforts and initiatives with, you know, trade of some kind, either trade or partnerships with others, with, you know, through relationships. So people who have this position, you know, their south node is in the opposite sign of the north node, and it's in the sign of Aries, or the first house. And what that means is that you are a person who has had a past, either in this life as well as, you know, your past lives, if you believe in that. You've had a past of being very self-motivated, you know, you know how to work through your self-efforts and to make things happen for yourself. You are perhaps even a good leader, and you know, very good with actions, with physical actions, and also knowing yourself and and your own identity, and not being afraid to express it. You know, this is something you can be very mature with, like, you know who you are at a deep level. And the difficult thing in this life for you, the more challenging role, is when it comes to relationships, you know, which is the opposite thing. And it's something that you're actually obsessed with. You really desire, you know, at a soul level, to merge with someone completely in that free-flowing way, that harmonious way. But that can be an area of life that is more challenging for you. And at the same time, because your north node lies there, you know, you will be given lots of opportunities for that to happen. But every time that you step in that direction, you know, there can be a lot more mistakes than other areas, because it's the darkest area in, you know, in your chart. Darkest meaning not negative, but the most unknown. It's the unknown zone. And so when whatever is unknown in our life, you know, we feel a magnetic pull towards it, like an insatiable pull towards it. But also we don't fully know it yet, so we can make a lot of, you know, so-called mistakes there. Like, we can try something and then fall down, sort of, in you know, so to speak. So what happens with people who have this axis is that, you know, sometimes they can be, because they have spent a lot of time and energy knowing who they are and how to handle things through their own self-efforts and actions, there can be this controlling mechanism. You know, they are very good with that energy and they know how to work with it. But sometimes when they want some things, you know, because I know some people who have this position in my life who are quite close to me as well, and I'll find how they, you know, they don't trust other people as much to fulfill what needs to be done, because they're so good with actions, and it's almost like they have this default pattern of just doing it themselves. And so instead of waiting for the other person, like, for example, you know, if there's some chores to be done in the house, they will just do everything themselves, rather than, you know, wait for the other person to do it in their own time or in their own way. And then, you know, other people perhaps, you know, they start relying on that. They're like, okay, so this person's gonna just do it their own way anyway. And then you get angry and pissed off. You know, suddenly you have outbursts about the fact that you have to do everything alone. You have to do everything yourself. And you have to recognize that, you know, while people might be reflecting that to you, the energy lies within you, you know. So we can't change other people. And if other people are becoming dependent on you, or using you in some way, you know, you feel like you are doing all of the work, look at where you are making that happen, where you are allowing for that to happen. And often this can be because, you know, we are too controlled, and we want to make things happen a certain way. We have a certain vision in mind, and you're actually very good at this as well. You have a certain vision in mind, you have a goal, and you know how to make it happen, and you know how to make it happen fast and, you know, in an efficient way. But in this life, you are asked to trust that, you know, there's a reason why we have relationships, and you know, how you will attract harmonious relationships that are long lasting is, and also ones that don't trick you or, you know, ill treat you in some way or just use you. How that will happen is when you fully trust other people as well. You really fully open up to actually allow that to happen without any agendas of controlling and making things happen efficiently. And the thing is that you can be quite open, you can go back and forth a little bit, because there's this obsessive energy to merge with other people. This can also, you know, lead to some affairs and stuff in the more extreme circumstances. If you have this axis running in the 1st and 7th house, for example, if your North Node is in the 7th house, often, you know, in astrology it's said it can lead to more than one marriage, because Rahu can give like multiplicity, but not always. You know, this is not always the case. I know people who have this position and they don't have more than one marriage, but it leads to a lot of opportunities for relationships as well. For example, you know, my mother has this position. Her generation, people who are born in that year, you know, have Rahu in the sign of Libra. But coupled with some other factors, you know, she's a diplomat, and Libra is the sign of diplomacy, is the diplomat, and she has the North Node there. That means her life purpose was to be a diplomat, and it's more than just the job, you know, it's the energy of having to learn how the art of being in a relationship and how to be in that relationship, you know, in a way that is healthy, in a way that is equal for both parties, and when you're not just controlling everything yourself. So that's what this axis is about. And let me see what other notes I wrote down. So this axis, you know, when you have this, there needs to be a balance of being secure within yourself. So you might feel like you're very secure within yourself, you know, like you know how to make things happen for yourself, you know how to build things, you know how to be successful as well. You can even take care of other people, you know, just by your own actions and efforts. But you're only really as sufficient and secure in yourself as you are in relationships, because at some point or the other then you will start feeling, you know, like I'm doing everything on my own, I'm surrounded by all these people but I'm just all alone, I always have to do work myself. And this feeling will be there, it'll leave you dissatisfied with even what you are good at doing. So that's because in this life, you know, you are asked to trust other people and learn this art of diplomacy and not compromise. Compromise can be a more negative word, but accommodation, you know, where your values and their values meet. There will always be a meeting point of the people that come into your life. People come into our life for a reason. So if someone's there in front of you and there has to be some exchange, and that exchange needs to be equal. When you do too much, that's not necessarily a good thing. You know, it leads to inequality, and then we have outbursts, or there's some other kind of compensation that happens. So if you don't want these compensations, when there's these control frequencies going on, that means that either we are controlling other people or they are controlling us in some way. But for true harmony, there needs to be open trust and an allowance for others to do things their own way as well, but they are recognizing that they are bringing something of value to us, you know, and we are also bringing something of value, and what the meeting point there is. So this is something that will be a theme in your life. Let's see what else. Then also Libra, or the 7th house, it also relates to business partnerships. So it's not only just, you know, your personal relationships, but the same, everything I've said applies to business partnerships as well. You might have lots of opportunities for business partnerships, or like I was saying, you know, like my mother is a diplomat, so she works with like a lot of people, because again the energy of Libra is about having this harmony, creating this harmony. You know, it's Libras are very good at being in a group, they are known as the social butterfly, and they're very good at like being in a group and maintaining the harmony of that group. They are in touch with what each person you know, needs. Like they don't like it when there's an imbalance, when one person's needs are not fulfilled just because the majority wants something, for example. So they're always trying to balance it out, you know, find that common thing that the whole group needs. They're very good at that, and they can be very socially charming as well. They have this social charm, this grace, you know, through these even social manners and things like that. So this is the energy that you are coming into and actually really desire in your life. And the way to do that, again, you know, is to allow for these qualities in your life more, and not just making things happen, you know, like a bulldozer just going through and making things happen. That is important, but that will get balanced out, and actually that side of life comes easily to you. So let it be there, but you don't have to put a lot of effort into it. There needs to be more effort towards you know, relationships and compromise, harmony, things like that. And when that happens, when you allow for that to happen, then this also becomes balanced, and it becomes a balanced axis for relationships, allowing trade and, you know, equal flow of energy to happen, and also putting in self efforts and initiatives. That is what will make you successful in all ways in this life. So some of the negative things that can happen I've already mentioned, but also what I've observed with some people who've had this position is that they, you know, they can be scared about confronting other people. So it can either be, you know, that either they just blurt out and they're very, very mean often, you know, because Aries, that sign, is all about being blunt as well, and they can be very mean, you know. They'll just tell the other person as it is, in a way that, you know, pushes their buttons sometimes, and just like through this, you know, you are another individual, I am another, and just back off with this kind of an energy. Either they'll do that, or you know, they will just not say anything. They'll just endlessly keep being you know, diplomatic, the more negative sense of diplomatic, where you're just not saying what you actually feel and you keep suppressing it. So again, the balance is to not avoid confrontation to the point that it, you know, becomes too much, but also to say what you feel, but in a more diplomatic, harmonious way, and at the right time, and not suppress it. So this is another theme that might be important in your life. Personal level as well, you know, if you have this position, that is what will be happening through all of your relationships. And so life will be providing you with many opportunities to have different forms of trade, you know, with others, whether that's emotional trade, you know, or of goods, you know, business opportunities. So it's a good idea to work with different people and to really develop what the idea of a healthy relationship is. To not, you know, only when you fully trust people will it come to a point where there isn't anything going on under the table, where it's because, you know, I know some people with this position, they for example, they were afraid. Sometimes they can be afraid to say how they really feel, because they want to be diplomatic and they can only hold it at some point, but then suddenly they have an outburst at another point. So so it's always, you know, balance is always the key, is that say whatever you want, you know, but just do it not in a way that's harsh, but in a diplomatic way, which is the graceful side of this, is that you can be graceful about it. And the more that you allow, you know, this kind of graceful diplomacy in your life and within your relationships, and with a fully open heart, you know, actually allowing other people a chance as well, seeing what the value they bring to the table as well, and not just relying on the default patterns that you have, you know, so far mastered to some degree, but it's not, you know, you will never be fully secure within yourself just by doing everything yourself. That's not the answer. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't want to keep going on, but this is I hope that some of these points help you. Let me know in the comments below if it did, and that's it.